Well, hello, everybody. This is Stepp Stevens Sydnor, and I'm so glad that you are attending this webinar today on our Beyond Surviving time that we got gathered here. So this is called the Create Your Life You Want, Our Life You Have event, right? And discovering the secrets that thrivers know that survivors don't. So we're really glad that you had an opportunity to take out of your day to join me on this particular webinar. Of course, I want to remind everybody that we do webinars about every other Friday. We're going through all my seminars, all my content, so to help you improve your personal performance and things like that. So I wanted to start by, if you haven't visited my website, just go to steppsydnor.com, or you can visit steppupnow.com, and you can see all the products and things that we offer there. Of course, it wasn't too long ago that I have gone through a lot of different experiences, most probably like you have, and wrote this book along with my contributing author there, Susie Street, called Survive or Thrive, which is creating a life you want out of the life you have. And so you can actually get that on Amazon and any bookstore, or if you want an author signed copy, just give me a call, shoot me an email at it's easy, steppsydnor.com. Be happy to sign a copy for you, put a personal note, and send it to you. To work on your Survive or Thrive plan, you may consider getting the accompanying workbook there, which is over on the right, and a step-by-step workbook to help you solve life problems and thrive again as we kind of go through this content. Of course, when we're doing our Beyond Surviving Breakthrough Success seminar, you may want to consider that for your company or for an event that you're having, because it's a full day of content that covers a lot more than we can cover here in an hour, as well as how to create goals and set priorities and wonderful things like that. So let me go over in the hour that we're together on this wonderful afternoon. There's our course goal. And of course, if you're on this webinar, it's just to help you increase your personal and business performance. Just simply by understanding that there is a difference between surviving a difficult situation and then moving past that into a more thriving, where you feel like you have a semblance of control and you're turning lemons into lemonade, right? And so this, our time together is going to be discovering that. And why is that? Well, because everybody goes through stress-filled situations. The first natural response is to survive a particular event. And we'll talk about a lot of different types of events that you may have already experienced, or you have friends or relatives, even children going through some of these experiences, because going beyond surviving is going to make the difference in order for you to create the life that you want out of the life that you have. You only get one life, so you've got to be able to navigate through a lot of these changes that we're going through and come out ahead. Of course, some of our objectives, as I'm going to share with you, how to understand the difference. There is a difference between surviving and thriving. We're going to talk quite a bit about tuning out your negative self-talk and wrong thinking. We'll talk about gaining insight to those 4 characteristics of surviving and thriving. And I'm going to share with you just a simple strategy so that you can create a more thriving life and how to embrace the winds of change. So, there are a lot of TV shows about surviving, right? So you've probably seen this TV show. I know I watch a little bit of it. It's not something I see every time, but in this particular show, they take a cast of people and they put them on an island, and you got to outwit and outplay and outlast the particular candidates. And this is really just a great example of surviving, right? You're going to go through a difficult time, and you've got to figure out how to get through this particular situation and come out a winner. But the point I want to make is that we've got TV shows about surviving, and not only TV shows, but we also have songs about surviving, don't we? It says there, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. We all experience hard times in our life. And one of the things that I like is, music helps you get through some of these situations. So music is a tool people use to reflect the past and process emotions. A lot of the songs that you listen to, these days, of course, I'm down here in the Texas area, you have a lot of country music. And a good country song is about either a breakup or a heartbreak or losing your job or, getting out of prison and things like this. But people like to write songs that are stories about the struggles and the challenges or the wins and the loves that they have. And the song by Katy Perry called "Rise" or Mariah Carey has "Hero," Destiny Child "Survivor," or Gloria. Who doesn't know "I Will Survive" by Gloria, right? I was at an event earlier this week, and we were talking about this, and during break, somebody put on that song, "I Will Survive." But we have TV shows about surviving, folks. We've got songs about surviving and making it through something. Uh, and we also have a lot of other things and events that we have to survive. And so I want to start with this. Do you remember when you were younger? I remember when I was younger, and it came around Christmas time, and my parents would give me a catalog. Or today, I love what we're doing today. My grandkids, their mom will put their Christmas list out on Amazon and then send me the link. And boy, does that make it easy to select a Christmas gift for your grandkids, right? Well, back then they didn't have that for me and my brother and my sister. They would give us those a catalog from a department store, and we would make our Christmas list. And then you know what happened? You give that to your mom and dad. You have this anticipation of things that you're going to get. And then Christmas comes along, and there's a little maybe disappointment. You didn't get everything on there. Maybe you didn't get anything on there, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is early on we have this vision of things that we want, good things that we want to happen, and we have our particular list, don't we? And you've got a list probably right now of things that you would like to happen in 2020. Maybe you're really glad that 2019 is over. It's such great to something ends and something fresh begins, right? Do you remember graduating from high school and talking to all your friends about your future and your plans, and then you moving on along in life, and you get through college, and then you hit real life, real work, real issues. You get married, you have kids, you got bills, and I tell you, you get far enough along in life, and you begin to see that some of the dreams and things that you have simply aren't happening the way that you thought they were going to come out. That's just common to everybody. I know it's true with you. I know it's true with me that we still, all of us have dreams and things that we want to happen. And then you have something that just knocks the wind out of you. And for a lot of us, it takes a while to recover from that. So we're going to talk about how to do that. Before we jump into that, let's look at some of these events that we survive. Of course, at the top, I'm down here in the Texas area. If you live in Florida or you're on the East Coast, or the Gulf states, we have issues with hurricanes, and the hurricanes we expect them every year. We hope they're not as violent as they can be, but they can cause a lot of damage. I haven't actually been through a hurricane, but I have been through a tornado, which is over on the right. So we have these natural elements that cause us a lot of issues that we actually have to navigate and survive, don't we? It was just 4 years ago in the North Texas area where I live that a stream of tornadoes showed up the day after Christmas. Imagine that. Tore up about 1,000 homes. Many people were left without their homes. Some homes were just completely devastated. They came back, and there's just a concrete pad there. I remember seeing one house that after a tornado hit, folks, the brick was still standing. Everything inside the house was gone. The brick was, and the roof was gone, but the brick was still standing. And it's just so interesting how powerful these natural events are. And of course, where were you when the Twin Towers fell? I remember I was at a printing shop printing off some workbooks for a client of mine, and we heard that the Twin Towers fell, and we just froze and watched the TV. It was unbelievable. And then, of course, this year, the fires that are happening in Australia, the fires that happen in um, LA. Folks, I haven't had a fire that completely burnt my house down, but these are a lot of traumatic events that are out of your control. And when they happen, it takes us a while to recover from these things. But even more than that, we've got other things we have to survive. We've got events like maybe you've been through a divorce, where you had a betrayal, or you had somebody that decided they didn't want to be married anymore, and you thought this was going to be for life. I don't know anybody that actually gets married to get divorced. I know that that has happened to me. It's devastating financially, with the family and the children and just all parties. It's a very difficult thing to go through. Just getting through it is challenging. Or maybe you experience a death in the family that was sudden. We've experienced that. Or a business that you were running and you had some risk, you had a hope for a business, a hope to make a profit, and you just suffered a lot of loss, or a broken heart, or maybe a financial setback where things just got out of control, and the next thing you know, you had a mounting load of debt. And I know I've experienced that. I remember I had a retail business that had 7 stores, 2 manufacturing plants, and just when the economy changed, the next thing you know, I got a bunch of bankruptcies from builders. And folks, I ended up $1 million in debt overnight. That was a nightmare. But we learned to thrive through it, and along with other life experiences, which is the reason we decided to write this content. And this has been a very popular topic for everybody: is how do you go beyond surviving? And so this is a great topic to be talking about these days. You know, besides television shows and songs that remind us we got to survive, right? You got to get through these processes, along with some of these natural elements and weather patterns that we're experiencing, and then the things of divorce and bankruptcy. We have a lot of other things that create challenges for us. I like this picture in the middle. It's a dried up desert, or you see the ground hasn't had water in a long time. And folks, sometimes it's not the big things that just drive you crazy or cause depression or cause you to slide into more of a survivor thinking. It's a bunch of little cracks, isn't it? I remember a car that I had, that a friend of mine wanted to take over payments because I was in super debt. I needed to unload some payments. I couldn't sell the car. He made a commitment to take over the car payment. He did that, and then a year later, he just gave the car back to me, and which was okay. I mean, I knew that was coming. And then I went to pick up the car, and then coming back from picking up this car, I was on the freeway, and a rock bounced off the truck, hit the windshield, smashed the windshield, and then I pulled over to fill it up with gas, which was completely empty. So that was annoying. Then the tire went flat. And I want to tell you what, by the time I got to the end of the day, it was all I could hope for was just to cover up in my bed and go to sleep, because all these little cracks just mount up. You may have had a big dream. I have a big dream right here that actually you've just lost. You've had this dream that this is what you're going to be in life, and just through life experiences, it has a way of dumbing down your dream, and you just lose it. Like this picture of Charlie Brown here, where Charlie Brown is going, man, nothing goes right for me. Another thing that causes us to stay or slide into survivor mode is expectations that we had from a relationship or something somebody told us. And sometimes, folks, we have a lot of unstated expectations. That means we're expecting something, but we haven't said anything about it. This happens a lot in relationships where one party has an expectation that's unstated. It's a commitment that they want, but the commitment was unstated. Or maybe they're looking for a marriage, but it hasn't been talked about. And so, a lot of times, if those expectations aren't met, we experience a lot of emotional pain over those things. The other thing is maybe you had somebody make you a promise and the promise wasn't kept. And you've been worried, thinking about that. You've been bitter about that. You've maybe it create some anxiety, but some emotional pain for you because somebody made you a promise that's not kept. Well, the opposite is true as well. Have you ever made a promise to somebody else and then you didn't keep it? Well, just because you didn't get released for that, because that promise was made, it was something that you said, but because it wasn't dealt with or wasn't finalized or didn't come through, it does sit in the back of your mind that you know that this is something that you should take care of, or you need to get released from this promise because you've created some expectations that you haven't followed through on. And I tell my kids often that it's okay, if you're in debt, if you can't pay, but it's not okay if you don't call and talk to people, right? It's okay if you make a promise and you can't keep it because of circumstance, but it's really not okay if you don't talk to them and get released from that promise. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make, we have so many disappointments and things that happen in our life, in our family, in our business. That's no wonder the what people do is they hit Sunday evening and that is the time that folks, most of the depression sits in because Monday's coming. How many times have you been at work and something went wrong? You say, well, it's a Monday. And it's really a sad thing to live your life where the best that you can hope for is to get to Friday for the weekend. And you're missing out on a whole bunch of the week and the time that goes by because you're in survivor mode, which is a reason we still have an escalating anxiety. It says anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults in the United States, age 18 and older. 18, almost 20% of the population every year. And I have to tell you, I think that's just climbing because we have so many issues that it's no wonder we feel like we can just survive. I just have to survive this day. The best I can hope for is 5 o'clock. The best I can hope for is to get out of this job until I finally retire in 10 years. And folks, there's really a different answer to that. I think because we're unsure how to deal with escalating anxiety, we'll just pop a pill and then we get used to the pill because it kind of dumbs us down, or we overdrink, or we overspend, or we over socialize, or we have addictions. And folks, these things and these will just rob you of the joy and the happiness in your life because really nobody wants to be just surviving, but it is a natural response. Have you ever heard your children, if you have kids, or maybe your cousins, brothers, and sisters, somebody say this, that life is just not fair? You hear this a lot when something traumatic happens, that life isn't fair. I have a very good friend of mine that is going through a very difficult time. And when they would text me, they would say, nothing ever goes right for me. Nobody wants me. And she's going through a really difficult time, and it causes you to just slip into a survivor mode, and you start saying life isn't fair. I remember one of my children was with me. We were driving around. We stopped at a 7-Eleven, got a big Slurpee. We got home, and the other kids saw the Slurpee. What's the first thing you think they said? Life isn't fair, Dad. I need a Slurpee too. And we have this entitlement that we create that, you know what, this problem's just happening to me. And what you're going to find out is that, a lot of these problems that you're experiencing are common with everyone. But here's the point. The same problem that happened to you is happening to somebody else, but they're getting a different outcome than you're getting. And so that's one of the things that we want to share with you, because at an event that I was at, I was talking about this, writing the topic of this book. And in one of the conversations, I asked somebody, do you think life is fair? And I responded, yeah, I think life isn't fair. And they said, you know what, I think life is fair because life is going to sooner or later break everyone's heart. Isn't that true? That it doesn't matter who you are, if you live long enough, life is going to do something that you expected, or a dream or a hope that you had, and the next thing you know, it's something changed on you, and you've got to deal with this particular change. And so it's almost like you got run over by a train, isn't it? This is what I like to name this train that you see in the picture. It's a train called change. What's interesting about this train is that you have probably found yourself laying on the tracks, railroad tracks of this train. Somebody made a decision that affected you and you got run over. And now you've got to pick up the pieces and recover from a decision that somebody else made. And it is extremely painful. Or maybe you got on the railroad tracks and you looked up and here comes this train called change because of a decision that you made. Maybe it was a decision that you didn't vet out enough and you decided, maybe like some friends that I know, they were gung-ho about starting their own business. They were convinced that this business was going to work. and they did very little planning. And when they executed it, they executed the plan that they had with their whole life savings. They opened up this particular retail store, and folks, 3 months later, they were out of money. And it wasn't because they weren't smart or the idea wasn't good. It's just that they made some bad decisions and didn't do enough planning. They got run over by this. Change happened, and the next thing you know, they're having to pick up the pieces. Or maybe you know somebody that's going through a really difficult time right now because of both of their own decision or somebody else's decision, or the economy changed, like I was telling you, on a retail store. The economy changed on me. A bunch of people filed for bankruptcy, and the next thing you know, I found myself in a lot of debt myself. So how do you navigate this stuff? Well, life just seems to have two sides of the tracks, doesn't it? You've probably heard this. One side of the track is you have things in your life that are really going well, and you have another side of the track that isn't going well. And what I find that when people are hurting or they're struggling, which side of the track do you think they focus on the most? Well, they focus on the track that's not going very well. They forget about what is going well in my life. And that's one of the key indicators that we find in people who are going through, they're surviving the situation, but they come out winners in the end, is they remember, I've got good things happening besides some of these present challenges. And they focus on their quote unquote their blessings. They focus on what's going well, and not always what's not going well. The other thing that I find that they do is they stay focused on the problem. They're not in denial about the problem, but they're looking at this problem to get out of survivor mode. So when you get hit with change, do you think that the only thing you can do is just survive? Well, absolutely not. You can choose to thrive, just like this flower that's in this picture here. Very little water, but this flower is growing in the most difficult situation, I would say. And so what do you do when you hit with change? Well, folks, you're going to have to choose to thrive. You're going to have to choose to turn lemons into lemonade. And is it easy? No, but can you do it? Absolutely. I'm going to show you some key things that's probably keeping you from getting to the top of your mountain and making things happen. The first thing that I want you to recognize is that folks, surviving is a natural response. Now, I've got a turtle here, and you can see that this turtle is in its shell, and this is what we do when you feel hurt or pain. If you were to burn your hand, as an example, on the stove, then you would immediately what? Remove it. And for the next day or week, depending on the severity of that, that's all you can think about because it's present. This is what happens when somebody that you trusted deceives you, and you can't trust them anymore. Trust, we all live, the whole world runs off simple trust. And when it's broken, it pulls around to the front like a big billboard, and that's all you can see is the deception or the hurt or the pain. And folks, that's natural. You're going to have to pull on your shell for a little bit because you don't want to get hurt again. So when people are in surviving, what does it look like? Well, you could relate to this. I just had somebody text me today. I was asking them how they are. You know what they said? It feels surreal, Stepp. I feel literally numb, and that is a symptom of what happens when somebody goes in shock. They feel withdrawn. They start to isolate themselves. They feel helpless and they feel numb. That's a natural response. Another characteristics when you're in survivor mode is they start blaming the other person or whoever hurt them. They have large feelings of hopelessness. Their emotions are very high. They tend to be more passive. They absorb energy around them. They're more reactive, and they could be an enabler, right? You could enable them in this particular set. They need to be taken care of when people are in this type of situation here. And when does this happen? Well, it happens immediately after the event. I have a friend of mine who just finished a year-long divorce. Now, when they're going through the divorce, they're just dealing with the attorneys and dealing with the surprises and dealing with the financial setback and dealing with the hurt of the family and the confusion of the kids. But where it really shows up, folks, when the divorce is over, and you're not in fight mode anymore, this is where most of the surviving starts, because emotionally it takes longer to get over this than it takes when if you were to break your arm. If you were to break your arm, you could pretty much put it in a cast and it will heal up. But when your heart is broken, when your spirit's broken, you're going to pull in that shell. And folks, there's some people that for years stay in that shell. And that's some of the things we're talking about. So I want you to think about, where do these survivor techniques come from? Well, some of it comes from how you were taught to handle life problems. So the first question is, where did you learn to handle life's problems? Well, obviously, however your environment was when you were growing up. Now, in my environment, I grew up in a multiple divorce family. Mom, dad divorced when I was 5. And my parents taught me, you solve problems by running away or not dealing with them or not having the conversation. So in my life, that's what was modeled to me. And believe it or not, that's actually what I did. Living paycheck to paycheck, because that's the culture I came from, until I began to get out of that survivor mode and get more educated and take more responsibility for myself. The other thing is just avoiding conflict. So however you learn how to handle life problems, or how your caretakers handle life problems, this is where a lot of your patterns develop. So it says there, how do these positive or negative patterns affect how you handle life problems today? Well, some of you may have had parents or examples of people that, man, they fought through, they dealt with the issues, they planned well, and they did very, very well as the outcome. They didn't ignore the problem, they just pushed through it. And some of us, if you're like me, we didn't have any of that. So you had to learn that as you kind of go. So it says there, so you do all you can to what? Just survive. And there's another option. Well, absolutely. You have to make a conscious decision to get control of the situation, or get a semblance of control, and begin to thrive. And that's where it starts. So one of the areas, principles that I want to teach you in our time together is you have to come to grips with this principle that I heard Jack Canfield talking about this one day. He teaches it in seminars. Jack is the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And there's a doctor of therapy that came up with this formula. And he said there's a formula, it's right there on your screen, E plus R equals O. Now, you probably want to get your pen out and write this down, because I don't want you to miss this part. This is very important. So E stands for the event plus the response equals the outcome. Now, the event could be a divorce, a loss, or something frustrating you. And R is your own response to that event. And that equals the outcome. All right. So you may not have anything to have to do with the actual event, but which part of this formula do you control? Well, obviously, you control your response. You've probably heard this saying. I was at a seminar one time, and the guy was talking about, how quickly we choose to change our behavior. So, a man and wife are having this big heated argument at the house, and the phone rings, and the man answers the phone, and the next thing you know, he's going, hello, and he's got this nice personality on, and suddenly this individual changed their behavior. Why is that? Well, they chose not to be angry. They chose to present something else. So that was the particular response. This is really important, because how you're responding to certain events, you choose the response, which says at the top, you are 100% responsible for your life and the outcome, regardless of what happens to you. Does that make sense to you? And this is really important, because if you don't understand this, this is going to affect how you manage your self-talk. Let me go back real quick, because I want to share an illustration with you. So a little bit about me. So my mom and dad, when they got married, things weren't working out. And so about when I was 6 years old, mom and dad got divorced. I lived with my dad. And then by the time I was about 14 years old, my dad was married not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times. My dad was married 6 times. And what I saw is a lot of his relationships just would go about 3 years, and then they would end. They just couldn't sustain a particular relationship. Now, of course, that affected me. So on my dad's 6th marriage, he and his wife chose to leave me and my brother in the town we were living in, and they moved, and we could not go with them. Now, I was just entering 11th grade in high school. So I ended up going to high school between 7:30 and 10:30, and then, folks, I went to work full time, and I had to pay for apartment and phone and my own. I mean, literally my own way. Now, what is you think my response to that event was? Well, I understood that my response was going to determine my outcome. So instead of whining and complaining and becoming a victim, I just started doing the right things, because part of that understanding was about my dad going into World War II, got drafted out of high school, survived the war, came back, finished high school, got a degree in geology, which is why I was born and raised in Texas. And so to him, his perspective is, hey, when you hit 16, 17 years old, you should be on your own. So I understood that. But the point I'm trying to make, my response to that event could have been really bitter, angry, blaming. And I just chose not to do that. And it has served me well because of the responses that I had. Managing your self-talk. I love this picture, folks, is this girl talking to herself. Listen, all of us talk to ourselves. I got a sign at home. It says, of course, I talk to myself. I got to get advice from somebody. It says there that disputing your self-talk means challenging the negative or unhelpful aspects. Doing this enables you to feel better and respond in situations that are more helpful way. Folks, if you had this, you could underline it or you could write it. It says, whenever you find yourself feeling, listen, depressed, angry, anxious, upset, you're going to use this as a signal. Why? To stop and become aware of your thoughts, because your thoughts are creating your feelings. That's creating how you're behaving. And if you have a lot of negative thoughts, I can promise you, you are going to be stuck in a survivor mode in a lot of areas of your life simply because of the way you're thinking. You know, Zig Ziglar said you got to do a checkup from the neck up, because it's all happening between your ears, right? So when you define self-talk, it says that your self-talk can have a great impact on your confidence. Folks, we know this is true. I have been in business development for 19 years now, working with a lot of individuals like yourself, either individually or corporately, or they come to one of my seminars. And folks, I struggle with this. I can tell you, when I feel that my confidence isn't doing very well, I can promise you that it's what I'm telling myself that's having an impact on my confidence. It says the effect could be good, the effect could be bad, depending on whether your self-talk is positive or negative. So there are a few ways you can help develop better self-talk, because listen to what you say to yourself routinely is the key. Now, this is really important. It says your mind thinks. That's what your mind does. But you know, not everything you think is necessarily true. You're going to interpret the information that you get through 5 senses to make sense of the world you live in and create actions that are going to help you thrive in this world. But we interpret information, we give meaning to people, experiences, and things that become our reality. But our truth and interpretations are not necessarily the truth. They're just an interpretation of the facts. So one of the things that we learn in getting from surviving situations into thrive situations is, folks, you've got to learn to separate the fact from the fiction, because we get a little bit of information, we turn it into a complete, believable vision and picture in our head. And sometimes that picture becomes the absolute truth. Says right here that facts have an actual existence. They happen in real time. They are measurable. They provide information that can be used as evidence that facts are not tainted by your perception. Here's an example of this. Let's say Sarah had a lunch with Lisa. They talked about Sarah's relationship with Mike. All right, well, that's a fact. How do you know that? Because it's measurable. You can measure that Sarah did have a lunch with Lisa. And what did they talk about? Well, they talked about Sarah's relationship with Mike. Now, you could take just that little bit of information, and you could begin to tell yourself that, you know what, Sarah isn't very happy in her relationship with Mike. Now, that could be true, but it's not a fact. And this is the area of personal self growth that you need to be doing more of. And if you're not doing it at all, you need to really get a grip on this, because a lot of the outcome in your life may have to do with the fact that you are interpreting things without examining all the information or all the facts. So, well, why is that a problem? Well, the reason this is an issue is that you base your lives on interpretations. Isn't that right? You make only and don't take time to collaborate the facts. You can become more susceptible to the take things personally. That's number one. You can get upset. You can draw conclusions, or you can simply create stories in your head that are not necessarily true and can cause you a lot, and the people around you, a lot of unnecessary suffering. Because, perception is reality, isn't it? You know what? If you I had a situation with my son where I told him to do something that he was supposed to get done, a project done or a chore done during the week. He came to me on Friday, asked to go spend the night with somebody. I said yes, and he hopped in his car and he went to spend the night. Later on, I kept thinking, you know what? This child went to spend the night because he didn't do what I asked him to do. The next thing you know, I started getting really upset. I mean, literally, almost called this child of mine and say, "You need to get home," because I didn't confirm that he did the chore that I told him to do, and there wasn't any way for me to check on it unless I asked him. Well, I decided I needed to practice some of the things that I'm getting ready to teach you. I decided to pause because the only thing I knew is I asked him to do a chore. He asked me to go spend the night, and he's not here. I don't know anything else. And so I actually ended up calming down. And then when he came home the next day, he came to the door. The first thing I asked him, I said, "Hey, I forgot to ask you, did you get that done that I asked you to do?" And you know what he said? He had got that done an hour after I asked him. Now, what do you think would happen if I ran off in some crazy story about him being disobedient and being deceptive and run it off, and then I unloaded my verbal shotgun when he came to the door? What kind of relationship do you think we would have if I did that on a regular basis? So I'm so glad that this principle is true. You have to separate fact from fiction. Why? Because our minds interpret information all the time, and our feelings are great at telling us which information needs to be double checked. Sometimes those perceptions and interpretations become an obstacle if you don't listen and understand to ask questions and verify information in the process. So facts. So ladies and gentlemen, you need to separate the fact from fiction in your current situation. What does that look like? Well, we'll do a test here in just a minute. Don't assume that everything you think and tell yourself is true. Psychotherapists will tell you that all the time, because unless you verify the facts, you could be completely wrong. I had a business situation where a friend of mine called me up. They're doing a product launch in California. The launch is going horribly. And she called me up. She said, "This isn't going well." It was one of her clients. And I said, "Well, where's your market research?" She said, "Well, they don't have any." And I said, "Well, your market research validates what your assumptions are." And sometimes in your own life, you have to validate what you are assuming is going on and understand the difference between fact and fiction. So this will help you. Learn to manage your self-talk. Negative self-talk is going to create negative feelings. So victim self-talk creates victim feelings. The outcome is going to be negative actions. Well, we all do that, folks. But what we need to do is minimize that. That's why I got a thumbs down. That's not a good thing to be doing on a regular basis at all. However, if you talk to yourself in a positive way and affirm the things that you're good at, affirm the things that went well in the particular situation, and identify things that didn't go well without beating yourself up, you have more positive self-talk. It's going to create positive feelings and positive actions. So here's the point. Whatever your outcome is right here, remember, event plus your perception is going to be your outcome, right? So whatever positive actions are, you can backtrack this to the positive feelings and go back to, what is it that I've been telling myself? Sometimes this is what I do a lot. I just don't have enough information. So I'm going to neutralize my self-talk. It'll help control your feelings so that you have a logical answers. Because one of the principles that I like to tell people that's been very helpful to me is that when people are emotional, they're not logical. Just think about the last time you tried to instruct somebody that was emotional. They're liable to just uh, yell back at you. And then why is that? Well, because when people are emotional, it's hard for them to think straight. And you have to get the emotional level down so they become more logical. People in customer service know this quite well, that you need to empathize with somebody when they're angry with you first before you give them any instruction. So here's a test. Fact or fiction? I was laid off from my job. All right. So what would you say about that? All right. Well, that would be fact. You can measure that. Management is out to get me. Well, that's not fact. That is actually fiction. My spouse Visa bill has a no hotel on it. Well, that could be true. That would be a fact. But you can interpret that two different ways. And there's relationships that have cratered because of situations like that. My son is going to be a failure at college. Is that fact or fiction? Well, of course it's fiction. But if that were the truth, that was stuck in your head, and this is the way you treated your son, no wonder he's a failure at in college or in school. The economy is bad and no one is buying. Well, that would be what? Well, part of that could be true. If the economy is like taking a dip, we can measure that. No one is buying, that wouldn't be true. I don't have any talents. I must be bad at everything. Of course, that's definitely fiction. My daughter failed her English class. Well, that's a fact. I've left 3 messages and they have not called me back. They must not be interested. You know, folks, I deal with lots of my clients are revenue producing clients, and they're salespeople, they're leaders of sales organizations. And how many times have I heard a salesperson or somebody say, you know, Stepp, I've reached out to this person, you know, 3 or 4 times and they're not interested. And I ask them, well, did they tell you they're not interested? Well, no. Well, then how do you know they're not interested? Maybe they're on vacation. Maybe they have 500 emails hitting their box a day or tons of voicemails from people like yourself or other industries calling. Maybe they're just busy. Why don't you just keep calling or emailing until they tell you, I'm not interested? And because, why is that? Because they take a little bit of information and turn it into a story. So the point is that you want to do is to move from surviving to thriving is you want to make sure that you are separating fact from fiction. The other thing that I see that thrivers do that survivors don't is the playground that they play in and the friends they have. Now there's 2 kinds of people. There are anchors and there are propellers. You know, an anchor person is going to keep you stuck to your problems. They're the ones that they love for you to talk about your divorce. They love for you to spend hours talking about the failures and the challenges and your hurt. And you know what? In some ways, you probably like them to do that because you got somebody to listen to. But the point is, at some point, that becomes too much. And you need to find people that are going to propel you. Now, I have a boat. I love boats. I love being on the water. And I have a motorboat. And I can tell you, if that propeller's not moving, that boat's not going anywhere. You can't drive it. You can't direct it. It's basically useless, right? So you need propeller people around you. You need people that are propelling you forward. And folks, one of the things in developing people that I find that we don't like, just as humans, is we don't like feedback. So yeah, that's exactly what I said. We don't like people giving us honest feedback. But your propeller friends are the ones that love you no matter what, and a propeller friend is going to give you some good feedback. This is why I love the men in my men's group, the accountability partners that I have. They keep me going straight and accomplishing the things that are most important to me, but they also help me keep from making stupid decisions, right? So you want to hang out with propeller people. You don't want to be around people that are ungrateful, unhelpful, unruly, unkind, unloving. They're not ambitious. They're unmotivated. Maybe they make you feel really uncomfortable because they have a different agenda for you. You want to hang out with propeller people. Now, I want to jump in the rest of our time together. I want to talk to you about the 4 characteristics of surviving so that you can get an idea, are you in survivor mode or are you in thriving mode? So there's 4 characteristics of survivors. The first one is self-preservation. The second one is victim. The third one is parasite. And the fourth one characteristic is an actor. There's also characteristics of thrivers. Now, folks, the difference between surviving and thriving in the middle of these 2 words is basically the same problem. The same problem that you're going through is the same problem somebody else is going through, and they were a survivor or going through survivor, the natural part of surviving, just like you are. But they seem to get over it and get along with their life a lot quicker. And this is what they're doing. They go from self-preservation, now they're in self-growth. They go from being a victim to a warrior. They go from being a parasite into a player that gets back in the game, and they go from an actor to a director. They see themselves, as you see this picture here. Love this picture where the kitties look in the mirror with the lion. They see themselves as somebody ready to roar and take on the challenges, which is very important in your life if you're going to accomplish life in 2020. So let's look at the first characteristic. Self-preservation is like the turtle that's pulling in, and self-growth is you're coming out and you're getting a reality check about your role in the problem. So let's take a look at that. Well, as we talked about, when people go into self-preservation mode, you've seen that there's a little shock, there's a physical, emotional numbness. They like to stay what's familiar. They don't like change. They don't want more change on top of them. So they're going to resist that. And they have a tendency to isolate themselves like a turtle. Folks, if you're in this mode, you need people around you. You don't need to over isolate. You may minimize your social time, but you need people to talk to. You need to see a counselor. You need time to heal, right? And so this is the natural part of that. It says that in your self-preservation, this is the first law of nature. Samuel Butler said that. Anytime you go through anything, this is the first thing that's happened. It's just natural. Judith Lewis Herman said, after a traumatic experience, the human system does what? Self-preservation seems to go on permanent alert as if the danger may have return at any moment. I've dealt with a business loss. I've dealt with having an accident that almost took my life, and I decided, boy, it was really difficult to jump back on and get back on the freeway again, right? You've heard that illustration. If you fall off the horse, you got to get back on the horse and conquer that fear. And that's some of the things that we're talking about, because it's traumatic. A lot of people that go through a difficult divorce or betrayal, boy, to get into another relationship, if they haven't gone through the thriving part and thought that through and healed in that area, you would still be unwhole. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to go out there, and an unwhole person that needs it is going to attract an unwhole person. And next thing you know, you got two unwhole people trying to make a relationship work. Part of that is not getting through the survivor situation or the healing part into more thriving. So self-growth means you start asking yourself, what's your role in the problem? You know, everything that happens to you. When I lost the businesses and ended up $1 million in debt, you know what, folks? There are some things that I start asking myself, how could this have been avoided, or what is my role in this particular problem? Any divorce that happens, a relationship breakup, there is something that there's a role that you had in this situation. A child that maybe you're not in a relationship with, there's probably a role that's happening that maybe you need to deal with. In self-growth, this is a time to heal. It's also time to learn, to get educated about maybe something, or better planning. And if you lost a business because you didn't plan enough, or you didn't have enough money to do the business. And when people are in self-growth mode, it's a time to move on. The other characteristic that we see is they risk the unknown again. First thing you hear people when they get divorced is what? I am never getting married again. Until what? 2 years later, they're engaged again. Why is that? Because at some point they decided to risk love again, and this is part of the self-growth part. There's also, you begin refresh. You go from being numb into, who are you? What are your gifts and talents? What are you good at? What are you not good at? And you begin to celebrate, and you get a better clarity of who you are and the boundaries, emotionally and physically, that you're going to set up around you, and you regain and affirm your personality. It says right here, if you want to make a masterpiece, you've got to be willing to create a little garbage on the way. Becoming the type of person you want to become, someone who lives by a stronger standard, someone who believes in themselves, someone who can be counted on by people that matter to them, is about the daily process you follow. It's not the ultimate product you achieve. You know, everybody wants to be happy, right? Well, the word happy actually comes from a word that means happening. That means if it's not happening, you're not happy. And thrivers just seem to have more joy, more happiness in situations because they have a semblance of control of what's going on there. Now, another characteristic is the difference between victim and blaming and being helpless and a warrior. So let's take a look at those. You've probably heard this before. Characteristic number 2 is a victim. Now, what does a victim do? Well, you can tell a victim role in a survivor situation because they're telling you this is not my fault. And what are they doing when they do this? Well, these stories make you out to be an innocent sufferer. Now, what's interesting about this, it's really amazing how many people hurt other people that they love. Well, you know how you can do that? You just dehumanize your spouse because you're so focused on that you're the victim and they're the person that's hurting you. And when you become the victim, you can dehumanize them by telling yourself, it's not my fault. The other thing is that's part of that in the victim role is the villain role that says these stories emphasize the particular qualities of those who have caused us problems. What does a villain say? Well, victim says, it's not my fault. The villain says, it's all your fault. You're the reason that I'm hurting. And that's absolutely not true because you're choosing the response to respond that way. The other one is helpless. How many people know people who just can't move along because they say there's nothing else that I can do. I can't do anything about that. They use words like I'll try, which the word I'll try basically means you're not going to do it, right? It's your escape back door that says, hey, if I tell people I'll just try, if it doesn't work out, I can do something different. So they become helpless, and this is not where you want to be. You want to be in this characteristic as a warrior. Now, I love this picture about Mel Gibson in this particular movie he was in called Braveheart, where he put on courage in order to move forward towards his particular challenge. So, what does a warrior do if you had that picture in your head? First of all, they put on courage. They doesn't mean they lack fear. It just means they are fearless. I love this acronym for fear: fantasizing experiences appearing real. That means that you're creating in your imagination experiences that are going to happen before they happen. Listen, if I'm not a pilot of an aircraft, but if I were a pilot of a Cessna single engine aircraft and I had hours that I'd spend, I may ask you, say, hey, it's tomorrow morning. Why don't you meet me at the airfield and let's go fly around the Texas area? Well, if you were fantasizing that we were going to crash, you're most likely not going to go. But if you had a more realistic approach about that, you may decide, yes, I'm going. So there's always two outcomes of that, right? So just remember that fear is fantasizing experiences appearing real. What else does a warrior do? Folks, a warrior is going to be ready for the challenge. Listen, life is full of problems. You've already experienced that. You may have been recovering from that train called change that ran over you, but guess what? As soon as you're done, something else is going to show up later on in life. And people, thrivers, are prepared and they're ready for that. They know who their enemy is. They know there's challenges. You know that part of their enemy is their own thoughts, their negative thinking, and so they deal with that. They take ownership and responsibility of their life. They know that the event plus the response equals outcome, so they manage the outcome. Folk, they make war on their trouble. I heard somebody say this, make trouble on your trouble, right? Sometimes instead of avoiding issues, we need to run towards them and pick up and start dealing with this. You always have an option, folks. This is what thrivers do. They look at their options, and sometimes some of the options are not the best options. Like a situation that I had when I was in debt, I was telling my employees around me, hey, if a creditor calls, tell them I'm not here. Well, folks, that is definitely a survivor characteristics, lying. And so I felt really bad about that. So I told my employees, I said, listen, if a creditor calls, take their number. If I'm here, I'm going to talk to them, which is exactly what I did. I started dealing with the situation, talking to them. And I have to tell you, in that situation, I got screamed at, yelled at, cussed at, threatened. I got sued. But the thing is, in my own heart, I felt that I was okay because I just told them the truth about what happened, the truth why I couldn't pay. And that was made it made all the difference. I wish I could share more about that situation, what happened after that, but we're running out of time. And warriors live in victory and avoid defeat. Another characteristic that I want to cover with you is characteristic number 3. There's a difference between a parasite and then getting back in the game. Now, if you remember what a parasite is, uh, this mosquito, if this were on your arm, how long do you think you're going to let it be there? Well, you're going to get rid of this immediately, which is a good picture of if you have a negative thought, you need to swat it like this mosquito before it starts sucking your blood. In some ways, when people are struggling long after the event has happened, they are still very passive. They seem to absorb energy. I've another friend of mine, you probably can relate to this. People that go through a divorce or they go through a bankruptcy, every time we get together, even though it's been 6 or 7 years after that event, they still want to talk about that event. It's almost like they relive that event over and over and over. And folks, sometimes you need to stop talking about it and you need to just move on because people who are parasites, when in survivor mode, they are also down at the bottom here. They're waiting on the call. This is very interesting because a lot of times what happens, if you want good things to happen in your life, instead of waiting for somebody to call you, maybe you should pick up the phone and call somebody and get off this survivor bench. You know, misery loves company. Now, I'm not saying, you don't get together with your friends and talk about some of your challenges. That's really healthy. The problem comes when you stay on this bench and you keep talking about it and talking about it. At some point, you've got to get tired about being with a bunch of people that are stuck in survivor mode, and you need to get off this bench and move along and get with the thrivers. Now, what does a player do? Well, a player that gets back in the game, that means that you were on the field playing the game, you got hurt, you sat on the bench for a while, right? But at some point, you've got to get back in the game. And what do people in the game do? Well, they produce energy. They don't suck the energy out of you. They're producing energy. What does that look like? They're encouraging others. They're forward thinking. They're helping people solve problems. They're pulling people along like they become propeller friends. They learn to separate the story from the facts. They're back in the game and they're making the calls and they're making plans. I remember a situation where we started going to a different church. And after I visited that church about 4 or 5 times, I didn't have very many people. I didn't know anybody. So I decided instead of complaining about it, we made a pot of beans and some cornbread. And the next time I went to that church, I started inviting people over to the house. We had a bunch of people show up for lunch that day, and several of those people are still good friends of mine today. And folks, that was like 20 years ago. So the point is, what thrivers do, they make the call. They're not waiting on somebody to do something for them. They are taking momentum and moving forward with that, and you can do too. All right, the last characteristics I want to cover real quick is the difference between an actor and a director. This is real important. What do actors do? Well, actors pretty much live the same script. Let me get over here. When an actor's on stage, what are they doing? They are not them. They are putting on somebody else's personality. And this is what survivors do. They just seem to live the same pain over and over and over again. And they live for the attention and the praise of others. They need people to be listening to them. And that's not necessarily bad. But what I'm talking about is this could go on for a very long time and it can be really annoying or with the friends and family around you. So at some point, you got to decide to quit being an actor and become more the director. Now, what does a director do? Well, a director calls the shots in their life. They're the ones responsible for the play, whether good or bad. They take ownership of that play. They're solution oriented. They actually create the script and they have script clarity. That means you have a focus and a vision and a purpose. You know what your purpose is in life. And what does that do for you? Well, you feel that you have a semblance of control, which is very important to all of us. When we feel like we don't have control, we can get really depressed. So the question is, where are you surviving? Are you surviving in self-preservation? Do you feel like you're being the victim? Are you a parasite and just absorbing energy from everybody around you? Or are you an actor, you're not really sure who you are, and you need more control of your life? Or are you jumping over, same problem, into self-growth? You're deciding, I am tired of sitting on this bench. I'm going to get out there and do something about this. This has been bothering me. This is an area in my life that I want to change. Instead of doing nothing, I'm going to do something. And then you get back in the game like a player and you become the director. So here's the question that I want you to ask yourself. What's it going to cost you if you continue to just survive? If you spend the 2020 just in survivor mode, so what are a few things you can do today to start the transition? Well, let me give you a couple ideas. First of all, just get out a piece of paper, make 2 columns. One column, put survive. In the right column, write thrive. And then ask yourself the following question based on this current circumstance that you would say, I'm just surviving this circumstance. Number one, what are you acting and feeling and thinking and doing in your behaviors and attitudes concerning this survivor situation? And write as many things, just brainstorm, write as many things down that you can. How are you feeling? What are you doing? What actions are you taking? And then on the opposite side of that, with each one of those things that you write, do this exercise. What could you be acting and feeling and thinking and doing in those behaviors and attitudes in your current situation? You know, if you feel depressed, maybe the thriver part of you says, you know, I'm going to go start seeing a counselor, or I'm going to see a good friend of mine, you know, once a week and tell them what I'm thinking and help me work through this. And that would be a Thrive Now exercise that you can do. So where do you start? Well, identify your surviving thinking actions. The second thing is identify your thriving thinking actions. So your surviving actions, your thriving actions. You got to understand what area needs work. Where are you not in self-growth? Where are you not getting back in the game? Where you don't feel you're a warrior or you're not a director of your own life. Other people are directing your life. You got to learn to manage your self-talk. And folks, you got to control the controllables, right? That means don't try to control the things you can't control. You can't control the attitude and feelings of other people. You're not responsible for the feelings of other people. You are 100% responsible for your response and your feelings and your actions. And you can make different choices today to begin to thrive. Uh, we're running out of time here, but I want to remind you that we've got these great books right here. The Survive or Thrive book that you can get online. It's got tons of information in there on the same topics. We go deeper and wider in that, or you can grab the workbook. If you have any questions at all, you can email me at steppsydnor.com or even step@steppupnow. Just make sure you put both P's in there. Visit our website. And I just want to wish everybody a great 2020. Get out of survivor mode, get into thriving mode. If you haven't seen our webinar on how to create goals and set priorities, just stay tuned if you're getting our emails when we do that, and hop on, because there'll be another great opportunity for you to stop and thrive some more. And I want to wish everybody a great week, and we'll talk to you later.